Chapter 1. The Creation of the World. In the beginning there was nothing but a vast, endless void. Chaos reigned, a dark, shapeless expanse where time did not yet exist, and nothing had form or meaning. There was no sound, no light, no life, just an infinite silence that stretched across the cosmos, holding all possibility within it. But from this silence a stirring began. Slowly something emerged from the chaos, a presence, ancient and powerful. Gaia, the earth, took form. She rose from the depths of the void, rich and fertile, her surface cool and smooth, ready to support life. Her curves became mountains, her depths became oceans, and her breath became the wind. Above her, Uranus, the sky, spread wide and endless. He was vast and mighty, his blue expanse stretching over Gaia like a protective veil. Together they gave birth to the world, as life began to stir in the soil and the first rays of sunlight touched the earth. Gaia and Uranus were not alone. Soon they gave birth to the Titans, powerful, towering beings who roamed the earth. The Titans were the first rulers of the cosmos, strong and proud. Among them was Cronus, a cunning and ambitious Titan who would one day rise to challenge the rule of his father, Uranus. The world was still young, the rivers flowed gently, and the stars glimmered faintly in the night sky. All was peaceful. Imagine the world as it was in those early days, when the mountains were new and the seas were calm. Picture the earth, bathed in the soft golden light of the first dawn, the gentle breeze carrying the scent of fresh soil and the promise of life. Let the serenity of this ancient world wash over you as you drift deeper into relaxation. Chapter 2. The Birth of Zeus. The age of the Titans was not without its turmoil. Cronus, the most powerful of the Titans, had seized control of the heavens by overthrowing his own father, Uranus. But Cronus was haunted by a prophecy, a whisper carried on the winds of time. It foretold that one of his own children would rise against him, just as he had risen against Uranus. Terrified of this fate, Cronus took drastic measures. Each time his wife, Rhea, gave birth to a child, Cronus would snatch the newborn away and swallow it whole, imprisoning the infant inside his own body. One by one, his children, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Poseidon, and Hades, were devoured, their cries silenced before they could grow into their destiny. But Rhea, heartbroken and desperate to save her youngest child, devised a plan. When she gave birth to Zeus, she wrapped a stone in swaddling cloth and presented it to Cronus. In his haste, Cronus swallowed the stone without suspicion, believing it to be his son. Meanwhile, the real Zeus was whisked away to a secret cave on the island of Crete. There, he was raised in secrecy by gentle nymphs, who fed him honey and the milk of a nurturing goat. Zeus grew quickly, his strength and wisdom blossoming like the wildflowers that dotted the hillsides of Crete. The cave where Zeus was hidden was cool and peaceful, its walls shimmering with soft light. Outside, the sound of the wind rustled through the olive trees, and the distant murmur of the sea was a constant, soothing presence. Zeus spent his days in the quiet embrace of nature, surrounded by the soft hum of life. The nymphs cared for him tenderly, and Zeus grew into a powerful, fearless god. When the time came for Zeus to confront his father, he did so with confidence and determination. He forced Cronus to release his siblings from their prison inside him. Together, Zeus and his brothers and sisters rose up against the Titans in a great battle that shook the very foundations of the earth. But for now, let yourself rest in the quiet of Zeus's childhood, where the gentle breeze of the Cretan hills cradles you into deeper relaxation. Chapter 3. Prometheus and the Gift of Fire. Prometheus, one of the wise and compassionate Titans, gazed down from Mount Olympus upon mankind, the beings he had shaped from clay. Though they lived and breathed, Prometheus saw that humanity struggled in the darkness. They were vulnerable, huddled in fear against the cold, with no protection from the elements. They knew nothing of fire, the divine spark that could bring warmth and light to their world. Prometheus's heart swelled with pity for the humans. He could not stand to see them suffer, and so he made a fateful decision. Under the cover of night, he crept to the forge of the gods, where the sacred flame burned. With great care, he stole a single spark and carried it back to the world of men. The fire danced in his hands, flickering with a soft, golden light. When he reached the humans, Prometheus knelt beside them and showed them how to kindle the flame. He taught them how to use it to cook their food, warm their homes, and craft tools. The fire flickered and grew, casting a warm glow across the faces of humanity for the first time. Soon the cold was driven away, and with the fire's light, mankind flourished. They built cities, tilled the earth, and their spirits grew strong and bright. But the gods were not pleased. Zeus, in particular, was angered by Prometheus's defiance. Fire was a gift meant only for the gods, and Prometheus had broken the divine order by sharing it with mortals. As punishment, Zeus chained Prometheus to a remote mountainside. Each day, an eagle would come to peck at his liver, which would regenerate overnight, ensuring his suffering would be eternal. Yet, even in his punishment, Prometheus remained steadfast. He knew he had given humanity a gift that would allow them to thrive, a spark of divine fire that would forever change their destiny. As you drift deeper into sleep, imagine the first fires crackling softly in the night, their warm glow lighting the dark corners of the earth. Let the peace of that first warmth settle over you, wrapping you in comfort as you relax even further. Chapter 4. Pandora's Box. The gods, displeased with Prometheus's actions, devised another way to impact mankind. Zeus ordered the creation of a new being, Pandora, the first woman, shaped from clay by Hephaestus, the god of the forge. Pandora was a creature of extraordinary beauty, her skin smooth and pale, her eyes bright and curious. Each god bestowed upon her a gift. Athena gave her wisdom, Aphrodite granted her grace and charm, and Hermes imbued her with the art of persuasion. But there was one more gift. Zeus himself presented Pandora with a small, intricately decorated box. The box gleamed with gold and was covered in strange symbols. Zeus handed it to her with a single warning. She must never, under any circumstances, open the box. Pandora lived peacefully for a time, but her curiosity began to grow. The box sat in her home, its presence a constant temptation. She would glance at it often, wondering what secrets it held. One quiet evening, under the soft light of a full moon, Pandora could resist no longer. With trembling hands, she reached for the lid. As soon as she lifted it, a great wind rushed from the box, and with it came all the evils of the world: sickness, sorrow, jealousy, and despair. These dark forces swirled through the air, spreading across the earth and into the hearts of men. Terrified, Pandora slammed the lid shut, but it was too late. The damage had been done. However, one thing remained inside the box: hope. It glimmered softly at the bottom, a faint but resilient light. And though Pandora had unleashed suffering upon the world, hope was still there, a beacon to guide humanity through the darkness. Imagine Pandora standing in the moonlight, the wind gently tugging at her hair as the last glimmer of hope escapes the box. The night is calm once more, and hope floats through the world, offering a quiet comfort to all who seek it. Let that same sense of peace fill you as you relax into the night. Chapter 5. The Labors of Hercules. Hercules, the greatest hero of ancient Greece, was born with the strength of a god and the heart of a mortal. His journey began with tragedy, as Hera, the queen of the gods, harbored a deep resentment towards him. Hercules was the son of Zeus and a mortal woman, and Hera's jealousy burned fiercely. From the day of his birth, she sought to bring him pain. In his early years, Hera sent serpents to his crib, but even as an infant, Hercules' strength was unmatched. He grasped the snakes with his tiny hands and crushed them, his first display of the power that would shape his future. Yet, despite his might, Hercules was plagued by Hera's hatred throughout his life. To atone for a moment of madness that Hera had inflicted upon him, Hercules was given a series of seemingly impossible tasks, the 12 labors. These trials would test not only his strength but his endurance, courage, and will. Each labor was a daunting challenge, from slaying the Nemean lion, a beast whose skin was impervious to all weapons, to capturing the golden hind of Artemis, a creature swift as the wind. Hercules' most famous labor was his battle with the Hydra, a serpent-like beast with multiple heads. Each time Hercules struck one down, 2 more would grow in its place. But with his quick thinking and the help of his nephew Iolaus, he scorched the stumps of the Hydra's heads, preventing them from regenerating. The creature's final head, immortal and indestructible, was buried deep beneath the earth, never to rise again. Imagine the hero's journey as he traverses ancient lands, the sun rising over distant mountains, his footsteps echoing through forests and across rivers. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of pine and the distant call of birds. Hercules' strength is not just physical. It is the quiet determination in his heart that drives him forward, the will to succeed no matter the odds. Each of Hercules' labors brought him closer to redemption, but they also taught him humility and the value of perseverance. Let his strength inspire you as you sink deeper into sleep, your body and mind releasing all tension, knowing that even the mightiest heroes must rest. Chapter 6. Orpheus and Eurydice. In the peaceful valleys of Thrace lived Orpheus, a musician of such talent that his songs could charm not only humans, but animals, trees, and even the gods themselves. With his lyre in hand, Orpheus would wander through forests and fields, his music bringing harmony wherever he went. The birds would cease their calls to listen, and the rivers would slow their flow, mesmerized by his melodies. Orpheus fell deeply in love with Eurydice, a nymph of great beauty and grace. Their love was pure and strong, and they were wed beneath the towering trees, with nature itself celebrating their union. But happiness is often fleeting, and their joy was cut short when a serpent, hidden in the tall grass, struck Eurydice. She died in Orpheus's arms, her spirit slipping away like a whisper in the wind. Devastated, Orpheus could not bear to live without her. His grief was so profound that he resolved to venture into the underworld to bring her back. His music, full of sorrow and longing, echoed through the dark caverns of the realm of the dead as he approached Hades and Persephone. Moved by his heartfelt songs, the rulers of the underworld granted Orpheus a chance. Eurydice would follow him back to the world of the living, but on one condition. Orpheus must not look back at her until they had both emerged from the shadows. Orpheus led her through the dark, winding tunnels of the underworld. His heart raced with anticipation, his steps quickening with hope. But just as they neared the surface, doubt crept into his mind. Was Eurydice really behind him? He could no longer hear her footsteps. In a moment of panic, Orpheus turned, and there she was, just a breath away. But in that instant, Eurydice was pulled back into the depths, lost to him forever. Orpheus stood at the mouth of the underworld, alone once again. He had come so close, only to lose her once more. His sorrow was deep, but he knew that love had given him the strength to face the gods themselves. Imagine Orpheus's lyre, its soft notes echoing in the twilight, a melody that rises and falls like the tide, carrying with it the weight of love and loss. Let the music soothe your spirit, and feel yourself floating gently into a place of calm, where even the deepest grief is softened by the passage of time. Chapter 7. Theseus and the Minotaur. In the heart of ancient Crete, within the twisted, winding passages of the labyrinth, lurked a fearsome creature, the Minotaur, a monstrous being with the body of a man and the head of a bull. Each year, the people of Athens were forced to send 7 young men and 7 young women as a tribute to King Minos of Crete. These youths were sent into the labyrinth, never to return, for the Minotaur was always waiting, hungry and ruthless. But Theseus, the prince of Athens, could not stand by and watch as his people were sacrificed. Determined to end the Minotaur's reign of terror, Theseus volunteered to join the next group of tributes. Armed with nothing but his courage and a sword given to him by his father, Theseus set sail for Crete. When he arrived, he was met by Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos, who had fallen in love with the brave prince. She could not bear to see Theseus lost in the labyrinth, so she gave him a ball of thread. "Tie this thread at the entrance," she said, "and unwind it as you go. When you have slain the Minotaur, follow the thread back to the entrance, and you will find your way out." Theseus descended into the labyrinth, its walls high and cold, its passages confusing and endless. The air was thick with silence, broken only by the distant, echoing sound of the Minotaur's breathing. With every step, Theseus unwound the thread, his heart pounding in his chest. Finally, deep within the maze, he came face to face with the beast. The battle was fierce, but Theseus fought with the strength of a hero. The Minotaur charged, its horns gleaming in the dim light, but Theseus was quick. With a final, powerful strike, he defeated the creature. Bloodied but victorious, Theseus retraced his steps, the thread guiding him safely out of the labyrinth. As you imagine the labyrinth, its cool stone walls rising around you, think of the bravery it takes to face the unknown. Let that sense of courage fill you as you slip further into relaxation, knowing that, like Theseus, you can always find your way through the most difficult of paths. Chapter 8. Perseus and Medusa. Perseus, the son of Zeus and a mortal woman, was known for his valor and cunning. His most famous quest was to slay Medusa, the Gorgon whose gaze could turn any living being to stone. Medusa was once a beautiful maiden, but after being cursed by the gods, she became a monster with writhing snakes for hair and eyes that no one dared meet. Perseus set out on his quest with the help of the gods. Athena gave him a polished shield, Hermes provided him with winged sandals, and Hades offered him a helmet that rendered him invisible. Armed with these gifts, Perseus flew across the seas to the desolate island where Medusa and her sisters, the Gorgons, lived. The island was barren, its rocks jagged and cold, and the wind howled through the empty landscape. As Perseus approached Medusa's lair, he dared not look directly at her. Instead, he used the reflection in his shield to guide him. With each step, his heart raced, knowing that one wrong glance could mean his doom. When he reached Medusa, her hissing snakes filled the air, their cold eyes searching for prey. But Perseus was swift. With a single stroke of his sword, he beheaded the Gorgon, careful not to meet her lifeless gaze even in death. He placed her head in a sack and fled, knowing its power could still be used against enemies. As you imagine Perseus soaring through the sky on Hermes' sandals, feel the weight of the wind lifting you into a place of lightness and calm. The danger has passed, and all that remains is the peace of a hero's victory. Let that sense of triumph guide you into deeper sleep, your mind at ease, your body relaxed. Chapter 9. The Tragic Tale of Oedipus. In ancient Thebes, a dark prophecy loomed over the royal family. King Laius and Queen Jocasta had a son, Oedipus, but their joy was shattered by a prophecy from the oracle of Delphi. The oracle warned that their newborn son was destined to kill his father and marry his mother. In a desperate attempt to prevent this fate, Laius ordered the infant to be abandoned on a mountainside, where he would surely die. But fate, as always in Greek myths, had other plans. A shepherd found the infant and, out of pity, took him to the court of King Polybus of Corinth. There, Oedipus grew up believing that Polybus and his wife were his true parents, never suspecting the terrible destiny that awaited him. As he reached adulthood, Oedipus, troubled by rumors of his origins, traveled to the oracle of Delphi to seek the truth. The oracle's response was cryptic but haunting. He would kill his father and marry his mother. Determined to avoid this horrifying fate, Oedipus left Corinth, believing that by fleeing he could escape his destiny. However, during his journey, he encountered a man at a crossroads. Tempers flared, and in a moment of rage, Oedipus killed the stranger, never knowing that this man was Laius, his biological father. With this act, the first part of the prophecy was unknowingly fulfilled. Oedipus continued his journey, eventually arriving at Thebes, where the city was plagued by the monstrous Sphinx. The Sphinx posed a deadly riddle to all who approached, and those who could not answer correctly were devoured. The riddle was simple yet profound. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? Oedipus, using his wit and intelligence, solved the riddle. Man, who crawls on all 4s as an infant, walks on 2 legs as an adult, and uses a cane in old age. With his answer, the Sphinx was defeated, and Thebes was saved. As a reward, the grateful citizens of Thebes offered Oedipus the throne and the hand of their queen, Jocasta, his biological mother. Without realizing it, Oedipus had now fulfilled the second part of the prophecy. For many years, Oedipus ruled Thebes in peace, but a terrible plague eventually struck the city. Desperate to save his people, Oedipus consulted the oracle once again. This time, the truth of his origins was revealed. In horror, Oedipus learned that the man he had killed at the crossroads was his father, and that Jocasta, his wife, was his mother. Overcome by grief and shame, Jocasta took her own life, and Oedipus, in his anguish, blinded himself. Imagine the weight of Oedipus's discovery as he stands at the crossroads, the sun setting behind him, casting long shadows over his path. He is a man who tried to escape his fate, but in doing so, he ran directly into it. His story is a reminder of the inescapability of destiny in Greek myth, where even the mightiest heroes are subject to the will of the gods. As you lie in the quiet, let the story of Oedipus remind you that while fate may be inevitable, there is strength in accepting what comes. Relax your body and mind, and let go of the things you cannot control. Feel the soft weight of sleep beginning to take hold, guiding you gently into rest. Chapter 10. The Odyssey of Odysseus. Odysseus, the clever king of Ithaca, was a hero unlike any other. His tale, known as the Odyssey, is a story not just of battles and monsters, but of a man's journey home after the long and brutal Trojan War. It is a tale of resilience, cunning, and the unbreakable will to return to those we love, no matter the obstacles in our path. After the fall of Troy, Odysseus set sail for home, but the gods had other plans. His voyage was plagued by storms, shipwrecks, and encounters with mythical creatures that tested not only his strength, but his wisdom and patience. His first great challenge came when he and his men landed on the island of the Cyclopes, where they encountered Polyphemus, a one-eyed giant. The Cyclops trapped Odysseus and his men in a cave, planning to eat them one by one. But Odysseus, ever resourceful, hatched a plan. He introduced himself to Polyphemus as Nobody, and gave the giant wine, lulling him into a drunken sleep. While Polyphemus slumbered, Odysseus and his men drove a sharpened stake into his single eye, blinding him. The next morning, as Polyphemus called for help, he shouted that Nobody was attacking him, and the other Cyclopes, confused by the name, left him alone. Odysseus and his men escaped by clinging to the undersides of the Cyclops' sheep, slipping out of the cave undetected. From there, Odysseus's journey continued, filled with trials that would test his resolve. He faced the temptations of the sorceress Circe, who turned his men into pigs. He resisted the enchanting song of the sirens, whose voices lured sailors to their doom on rocky shores. And he survived the deadly whirlpool Charybdis and the six-headed monster Scylla, whose ravenous heads devoured sailors from passing ships. Yet, perhaps the most challenging trial of all was his time spent on the island of Calypso. The nymph Calypso fell in love with Odysseus and kept him on her island for 7 long years. Though she offered him immortality and eternal youth, Odysseus longed only to return to his wife, Penelope, and his son, Telemachus. Eventually, the gods intervened, and Calypso, heartbroken, released him. After 20 years of wandering, Odysseus finally returned to Ithaca, but his journey was not yet over. His palace was overrun with suitors vying for Penelope's hand, believing Odysseus to be dead. Disguised as a beggar, Odysseus plotted his revenge. With the help of his son and a few loyal servants, he slaughtered the suitors and reclaimed his home. Imagine Odysseus standing on the shore of Ithaca, the salt air in his lungs, his eyes scanning the familiar hills. He is a man who has traveled to the ends of the earth and back, who has seen gods and monsters, but all he truly desires is the simple peace of home. Let his determination and resilience soothe you as you lie in the quiet, your own journey to sleep unfolding slowly, peacefully. As the waves of the sea rocked Odysseus's ship on his long voyage, feel the gentle rhythm of your own breath, rising and falling. The world is quiet now, and like Odysseus, you can finally find rest after the day's journey. Chapter 11. The Tragedy of Achilles. Achilles, the greatest warrior of the Greek army during the Trojan War, was a figure of both immense power and deep, fatal vulnerability. His story is one of glory and rage, of friendship and sorrow, culminating in a fate that no strength could escape. Achilles was born to Thetis, a sea nymph, and Peleus, a mortal king. From the moment of his birth, it was prophesied that Achilles would become a mighty hero, but his life would be short and marked by tragedy. To protect him, Thetis dipped her infant son into the river Styx, the waters of which made him invulnerable. But she held him by his heel, leaving that one spot untouched by the river's magical protection. This single vulnerability would later be known as Achilles' heel, the only place where he could be harmed. Achilles grew to be an unparalleled warrior, and when the Trojan War began, he became the Greeks' greatest asset. His skill in battle was unmatched, and his mere presence on the battlefield struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. Yet Achilles was not only defined by his strength, he was also driven by intense emotions, particularly his fierce loyalty to his close friend Patroclus. As the war dragged on, Achilles' rage became legendary. It was this rage that led to his refusal to fight when he felt slighted by Agamemnon, the commander of the Greek forces. Agamemnon had taken a prize of war from Achilles, and in his anger, Achilles withdrew from the battle, leaving the Greeks at a disadvantage. Without their champion, the Greeks struggled against the Trojans, and their situation grew increasingly dire. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, Patroclus donned Achilles' armor and led the Greek forces into battle, hoping that the sight of the famed warrior's armor would rally the troops. But the plan took a tragic turn. Hector, the prince of Troy, mistook Patroclus for Achilles and killed him in combat. When Achilles learned of Patroclus's death, his grief and rage were overwhelming. He returned to the battlefield, not for glory or honor, but to avenge his fallen friend. Achilles' fury was unstoppable. He slaughtered countless Trojans and eventually faced Hector in a fateful duel. The battle between the two heroes was fierce, but Achilles, driven by his need for revenge, overpowered Hector and killed him. In his rage, he dishonored Hector's body, dragging it behind his chariot around the walls of Troy. This act of cruelty shocked even the gods, but Achilles' grief over Patroclus had consumed him entirely. Yet, even in his darkest moments, Achilles was not beyond the reach of compassion. When Priam, the king of Troy, and Hector's father came to Achilles in the dead of night to beg for the return of his son's body, Achilles was moved by the old man's grief. He saw in Priam the same sorrow he felt for Patroclus, and in a rare moment of tenderness, Achilles agreed to return Hector's body, allowing Priam to give his son a proper funeral. But Achilles' fate was sealed. As the war continued, Paris, the Trojan prince, fired a single arrow guided by the god Apollo. The arrow struck Achilles in his only vulnerable spot, his heel. The mighty warrior fell, his life cut short just as the prophecy had foretold. Imagine Achilles standing tall on the battlefield, the dust of Troy swirling around him, his heart heavy with both anger and sorrow. He is a man of immense power, yet also deeply human in his grief and his vulnerability. As you listen to his story, let it remind you that even the strongest among us carry their own burdens. Allow yourself to relax, your body sinking deeper into comfort, knowing that even in moments of intense emotion, peace can be found. Chapter 12. the love story of Eros and Psyche. In a world filled with gods, mortals, and creatures of myth, there is one story that stands out for its beauty and message of enduring love: the tale of Eros and Psyche. Psyche was a mortal woman of extraordinary beauty, so much so that people began to neglect the worship of Aphrodite, the goddess of love, in favor of admiring her. Enraged by this, Aphrodite sent her son, Eros, the god of desire, to make Psyche fall in love with the most hideous creature he could find. But when Eros saw Psyche, he was struck by her beauty, and, in a twist of fate, fell in love with her himself. Unable to carry out his mother's orders, Eros whisked Psyche away to a hidden palace, where he visited her each night. However, he did so in complete darkness, forbidding her from ever seeing his face. Though Psyche fell deeply in love with her mysterious husband, her curiosity began to gnaw at her. One night, while Eros slept, Psyche lit a lamp to gaze upon his face. She was astonished to see that her husband was none other than the god of love himself. But as she leaned closer, a drop of hot oil from the lamp fell onto Eros's shoulder, waking him. Furious at her betrayal of his trust, Eros fled, leaving Psyche heartbroken. Determined to win back her love, Psyche embarked on a journey to prove her devotion. She sought out Aphrodite, who imposed a series of seemingly impossible tasks upon her, each designed to break her spirit. Psyche was tasked with sorting an enormous pile of mixed grains, gathering golden fleece from dangerous rams, and traveling to the underworld to retrieve a box containing the beauty of Persephone, the queen of the dead. Despite the difficulty of these tasks, Psyche persevered. With the help of sympathetic gods and creatures, she completed each task, proving her love and determination. In the end, Eros, moved by her devotion, returned to her side. He took Psyche to Mount Olympus, where Zeus granted her immortality so that they could be together forever. As you imagine Psyche's journey, picture her walking through fields of tall grass, her heart filled with hope, the sky above clear and calm. The air is warm, and the sounds of nature are gentle, like a lullaby. Feel her determination and love as she moves forward, step by step, through her trials. Just as Psyche's love for Eros was eternal, let this peaceful moment wrap around you, easing your mind as you drift deeper into sleep. Chapter 13. Jason and the Argonauts. Jason's quest for the Golden Fleece is one of the most famous adventures in Greek mythology, a tale of bravery, betrayal, and the search for glory. Jason, the rightful heir to the throne of Iolcus, was denied his birthright by his uncle, Peleus. Peleus, fearing that Jason would one day return to claim the throne, sent him on an impossible mission: to retrieve the Golden Fleece, a magical ram's fleece that was guarded by a fierce dragon in the distant land of Colchis. Undeterred, Jason assembled a group of heroes known as the Argonauts, named after their ship, the Argo. Among them were some of the greatest figures of Greek myth, including Hercules, Orpheus, and the twins Castor and Pollux. Together, they set sail across treacherous seas, facing dangers both natural and supernatural. One of their first challenges was the island of Lemnos, inhabited entirely by women who had killed their husbands. Though the women welcomed the Argonauts, Jason knew that his journey could not be delayed. They pressed on, encountering hostile giants, navigating through clashing rocks, and battling fierce warriors. When they finally arrived in Colchis, Jason faced his greatest challenge yet. King Aeetes, the ruler of Colchis, was not willing to give up the Golden Fleece easily. He imposed 3 deadly tasks upon Jason: to yoke fire-breathing bulls, to sow the teeth of a dragon into the earth, from which a legion of warriors would spring, and to defeat the dragon that guarded the fleece. Jason, however, was not alone. The king's daughter, Medea, a powerful sorceress, had fallen in love with him. She provided Jason with a potion to protect him from the bull's flames and gave him advice on how to defeat the warriors that rose from the dragon's teeth. With Medea's help, Jason completed the tasks and claimed the golden fleece. Together they fled Colchis, pursued by Aeetes and his forces. Jason's return to Iolcus, however, was not the happy ending he had hoped for. Betrayal and tragedy followed, and Jason's quest for the golden fleece, while successful, left him with a heavy heart. As you imagine the Argo sailing across the open sea, the waves gently rocking the ship, let the sound of the ocean carry you into deeper relaxation. Jason's journey was filled with trials, but like him, you can find strength in the face of adversity. Feel the steady rhythm of the ship's movement, and let it lull you further into sleep, the stars above guiding you toward peaceful dreams. Chapter 14. The Labors of Heracles. Heracles, known more commonly by his Roman name, Hercules, was the greatest of the Greek heroes, renowned for his incredible strength and courage. Yet his life was filled with hardship and suffering, brought about by the cruel jealousy of Hera, queen of the gods. From birth, Hera sought to make Heracles' life miserable, and it was her rage that eventually led him to commit a tragic crime, unwittingly killing his own wife and children in a fit of madness. Overcome by grief and guilt, Heracles sought penance and was given a daunting challenge: to complete 12 seemingly impossible labors, each more dangerous than the last. The first labor sent Heracles to the hills of Nemea, where a monstrous lion terrorized the land. This lion, with its impenetrable hide, could not be harmed by conventional weapons. But Heracles, undeterred, wrestled the beast with his bare hands and choked it to death. From that day forward, he wore the lion's skin as armor, a symbol of his strength and invincibility. The second labor took him to the swamps of Lerna, where he faced the Hydra, a many-headed serpent with poisonous breath. For each head Heracles severed, 2 more would grow in its place. With the help of his nephew Iolaus, Heracles used fire to cauterize the stumps of the Hydra's heads, preventing them from regenerating. Finally, he buried its immortal head under a heavy rock, ensuring the creature would never rise again. Heracles' third labor required him to capture the Ceryneian hind, a swift and elusive deer sacred to Artemis, goddess of the hunt. Heracles pursued the hind for an entire year before he was able to capture it without harming the creature, earning the respect of the gods for his patience and persistence. The fourth labor sent Heracles to capture the Erymanthian boar, a giant beast that ravaged the countryside. He chased the boar into deep snow, using the terrain to his advantage to finally trap and capture it. He returned to his taskmaster, King Eurystheus, who, terrified by the sight of the enormous boar, hid in a large jar. But not all of Heracles' labors involved beasts and monsters. For his fifth labor, Heracles was tasked with cleaning the Augean stables, which housed thousands of cattle and had not been cleaned in years. The filth was overwhelming, but Heracles, using his great strength and ingenuity, diverted 2 rivers to wash out the stables in a single day. Heracles' next challenge, the sixth labor, was to drive away a flock of deadly Stymphalian birds, whose feathers were sharp as arrows. With the help of a pair of bronze castanets given to him by Athena, Heracles frightened the birds into the sky and shot them down with his bow. The seventh labor required Heracles to capture the Cretan bull, a massive beast that had been terrorizing the island of Crete. Heracles wrestled the bull to the ground and brought it back to the mainland. For his eighth labor, Heracles was sent to Thrace to retrieve the man-eating horses of King Diomedes. After subduing Diomedes, Heracles fed the cruel king to his own horses, taming them and bringing them back to his taskmaster. The ninth labor sent Heracles to the land of the Amazons, a fierce tribe of warrior women, to retrieve the belt of their queen Hippolyta. The queen, impressed by Heracles, was willing to give him the belt, but Hera, ever jealous, stirred up trouble, leading to a battle. Despite the chaos, Heracles was able to secure the belt and complete his task. For his 10th labor, Heracles journeyed to the western edge of the known world to steal the cattle of the giant Geryon. Geryon was a fearsome creature with 3 bodies, but Heracles, armed with his mighty club and bow, defeated him and returned with the cattle. The 11th labor was the most dangerous yet: to retrieve the golden apples of the Hesperides, which were guarded by a 100-headed dragon and the Hesperides' nymphs. Heracles sought the help of the Titan Atlas, who held up the sky. Atlas retrieved the apples for Heracles, but when Atlas tried to leave Heracles with the burden of holding up the sky, Heracles, through clever trickery, convinced Atlas to take it back, successfully completing the labor. Finally, the 12th labor took Heracles to the underworld itself, where he was tasked with capturing Cerberus, the 3-headed guard dog of Hades. Heracles, through sheer strength, managed to subdue the terrifying beast and bring it back to the surface, completing the final and most difficult of his labors. Heracles' journey through these 12 labors is a story of resilience, intelligence, and the power to overcome even the most daunting of challenges. As you reflect on his incredible feats, imagine Heracles standing tall, the weight of his tasks behind him, a man who had faced the very gods themselves and triumphed. Now, in the quiet of the night, let Heracles' strength inspire you to let go of the burdens of the day. Feel your body relax, as though you too have completed a great journey and can now find peace and rest. Chapter 15. The Fall of Icarus. The story of Icarus is one of ambition, youthful exuberance, and the danger of flying too close to the sun. Icarus was the son of Daedalus, a brilliant inventor and craftsman who had designed the famous Labyrinth of Crete. After Daedalus helped the hero Theseus escape the labyrinth by providing him with a ball of string, King Minos, the ruler of Crete, imprisoned Daedalus and his son Icarus in a high tower as punishment. But Daedalus, ever resourceful, devised a plan to escape. Using feathers and wax, he crafted 2 pairs of wings, one for himself and one for Icarus. Before they took flight, Daedalus warned his son, "Do not fly too high, for the heat of the sun will melt the wax, and do not fly too low, for the moisture of the sea will weigh down your wings." With these words of caution, Daedalus and Icarus soared into the sky, escaping the tower and flying over the sparkling Aegean Sea. At first, everything went according to plan. Icarus, filled with excitement, marveled at the sensation of flight, the wind rushing through his hair, the freedom of the open sky. But as they flew higher, Icarus, intoxicated by the thrill of flight, forgot his father's warning. He began to climb higher and higher, eager to see how far he could go. As he rose closer to the sun, the heat grew intense. Soon, the wax that held his wings together began to soften. Before Icarus could realize his mistake, his wings began to fall apart, and he plummeted into the sea below, drowning in the deep waters. Daedalus, heartbroken, searched the sea for his son, but it was too late. Icarus' ambition had led to his downfall, a reminder that even the most wondrous of inventions must be used with care and respect for nature's limits. As you imagine the sun setting over the Aegean, the waves gently lapping against the shore, let the story of Icarus remind you of the importance of balance. While it is natural to dream and to strive for great heights, there is also wisdom in knowing your limits. Now, as you settle into the quiet, let your mind drift, like Icarus soaring through the sky, but with the calm and control that leads to peace. Chapter 16. The Judgment of Paris. The Judgment of Paris is a tale that set the stage for one of the greatest conflicts in Greek mythology, the Trojan War. It begins with a simple yet fateful event, a golden apple inscribed with the words, "To the fairest." This apple, thrown into the midst of a divine banquet by the goddess Eris, the spirit of discord, would ignite a rivalry among the goddesses that would change the course of history. 3 goddesses laid claim to the apple: Hera, queen of the gods; Athena, goddess of wisdom and war; and Aphrodite, goddess of love. Unable to decide who among them was the fairest, they turned to Paris, a prince of Troy, to make the decision. Each goddess offered Paris a tempting bribe. Hera promised him power, the ability to rule over vast lands and people. Athena offered him wisdom and victory in battle, the skill to become the greatest warrior of his time. But Aphrodite, the goddess of love, offered Paris the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta, as his bride. Swayed by Aphrodite's offer, Paris awarded the golden apple to her, unknowingly sealing his fate and the fate of his city. Helen, however, was already married to Menelaus, king of Sparta. When Paris, with Aphrodite's help, abducted Helen and took her to Troy, it sparked a war that would last for 10 years, the Trojan War. The story of the Judgment of Paris is one of choices and consequences. It is a reminder that even the smallest decisions can have far-reaching effects. As you reflect on Paris's choice, think of the decisions you've made throughout your day, and know that now it's time to let them rest. Allow your mind to calm, knowing that tomorrow is another day for new choices and new beginnings. Chapter 17. The Trojan Horse. The Trojan War, sparked by the abduction of Helen, raged for 10 long years. The greatest heroes of Greece and Troy fought bravely, with neither side able to claim a decisive victory. The walls of Troy stood tall and impenetrable, and it seemed the Greeks would never breach the city. But it was not brute force that finally brought an end to the war. It was cunning. The Greeks, led by the clever Odysseus, devised a plan that would go down in history as one of the greatest acts of deception ever told, the Trojan Horse. Pretending to abandon the war, the Greeks left behind a giant wooden horse as a supposed offering to the gods. They sailed away, leaving the horse at the gates of Troy. The Trojans, believing the war was finally over and that the horse was a gift of peace, brought it into the city. That night, while the Trojans slept, the Greeks hidden inside the hollow horse emerged and opened the gates to the Greek army, who had returned under the cover of darkness. The city of Troy, which had withstood a decade of siege, fell in a single night. The fall of Troy marked the end of the war, but its legacy lived on in tales of heroism, betrayal, and the consequences of pride. As the city burned, the story of the Trojan Horse became a symbol of the power of wit and strategy over sheer strength. As you think of the walls of Troy crumbling and the calm that followed the storm, let your own mind ease into rest. Just as the Greeks waited patiently for the right moment to strike, you can allow your thoughts to settle and drift away. The battle of the day is over, and now is the time for peace. Chapter 18. The Odyssey Home. While the Trojan War came to an end, the story of Odysseus, the mastermind behind the Trojan Horse, was far from over. His journey home, known as the Odyssey, would take him 10 more years and bring him face to face with trials as difficult as those he had encountered in battle. Odysseus's long voyage was fraught with danger, from the seductive song of the sirens, whose voices lured sailors to their doom, to the wrath of Poseidon, god of the sea, who sought to thwart Odysseus at every turn. He encountered the one-eyed Cyclops, Polyphemus, whose strength was matched only by his savagery. Yet, once again, it was not strength that saved Odysseus, but his wits. He tricked Polyphemus by blinding him and escaping the giant's cave with his men, hidden beneath sheep. Odysseus also faced the enchantress Circe, who turned his men into swine. But with the help of the gods, he resisted her magic and convinced her to return his men to their human form. He even ventured into the underworld itself, seeking the wisdom of the prophet Tiresias to guide him on his journey. Despite all these trials, Odysseus never lost sight of his ultimate goal: to return home to his wife, Penelope, and his son, Telemachus, in Ithaca. When he finally reached his homeland, he found that many had assumed he was dead and were vying for Penelope's hand. But in disguise, Odysseus plotted his revenge and, with the help of his son, defeated the suitors and reclaimed his home. The story of Odysseus is one of perseverance, patience, and the enduring power of love and loyalty. No matter how far you journey, no matter the obstacles you face, there is always the promise of home at the end of the road. As you think of Odysseus's long and winding path, know that you too are on a journey, one that leads you toward rest and relaxation. Let the waves of the sea that carried Odysseus gently lull you into sleep, and may your dreams be filled with the promise of home and the comfort of familiar shores. Chapter 19. The End of the Journey. As we come to the end of this collection of myths, consider the journeys and trials of the heroes we've met along the way. From the labors of Heracles to the rise and fall of Icarus, from the wars of Troy to the long journey of Odysseus, each story has carried with it lessons of courage, wisdom, and the importance of balance. But now, as night deepens and the stars shine bright, it's time to let go of these stories and the day that has passed. You've traveled far with these heroes, but now your own journey is taking you to a place of rest. Feel your body relax, heavy and calm, like a ship that has finally reached safe harbor. The waves are gentle, the winds soft. Your mind is quiet, your body at ease. You are home, where the struggles of the day can no longer reach you. Take a deep breath and let it out slowly. Know that you are safe, and that sleep is here to carry you through the night. Just as the gods watched over the heroes of old, let the peaceful night watch over you. Sleep well, and may the dreams of ancient heroes carry you through until the dawn.